Thanks to the grace of the heaven, virtue of the masters, compassion of the grand predecessor and predecessor, all transmitters, lecturers, temple hosts, and all of you for giving me this opportunity to learn to present the virtues and teachings of Bai Sui Laoren, or we call it grand predecessor. He has other names called Bai Sui Sendi. I guess in translation it's a whitewater emperor.
Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of like a Buddha.
Kind of, yeah. Okay, so last week Virginia has presented the introduction of who he is, and here I wanted to start by playing a minute, maybe less than 2 minutes, video of him speaking to us.
我们修的是老天的天道，认准老师的天命。修道是我们自个儿的命，修我们自个儿的心。前人不好，前人不好，前人有过是前人，你有功没给前人呢？这全我们老师说的话啊。我们老师当初也是普通人，也没做过官，也没发过大财，他说人家。 得道之后，跟着有一位耿老师办道，回来一年一年的跟我们一样啊。17代走，老祖师不在了，我们老师师母全都是17代走的弟子。顶到现在呢，大道普遍世界各国，所以你们大家不知道。 当初我求道那时候，仙佛说这个话，我都犹豫不大相信。我们普通人怎么会达到普遍世界各国的呢？现在你看，都普遍世界各国，所以天命那是上天有命，人拦不住。好比我再来台湾吧，你看看，民国40年军法处判我徒刑。 民国57年，警备司令部又给我请去说谈话，又蹲1个礼拜，说是邪教。现在你看看，道务明显了，他也不说邪教了，人家外国全都准许了，我们台湾的还有什么限制啊？
Okay, so to summarize the video, basically the grand predecessor, he said that he was like us, human beings, and he didn't believe the great Tao would transmit around the world. Buddha foretell the future. He wanted us to know propagating and cultivating the great Tao are the way to our Buddhahood. Believing the truth will reveal. That's the summary. This was a given text to use, and it came with an English translation. However, I edited the translation so that it would make a better sense, and I also researched the quotes that was used in the content to further understand the meaning of each. Okay, so the first paragraph, basically, it says the Nietzsche analects stated, "In truth, man is a polluted river. One must be a sea to receive a polluted river without becoming defiled." He was a 19th century German philologist, thinker, and philosopher. His focus is on the evaluation of human conduct in a particular content. And the second sentence, if you go back to the second sentence, right? It's a quote that was pulled from the opening of the Vimalakirti Sutra. So here it says, when the Buddha explained to Ratnakara and the 500 young Chavis, excuse my pronunciation, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce, okay? About the purification of the Buddha field of the Bodhisattvas. The first one that the Buddha pointed out was straight heart is the purification of the Buddha field of the Bodhisattvas. It means that the entry to the world of the Buddha or the Buddha land is to be able to act upon our straight heart from our Bodhi mind, or you call it Bola. The whole passage is translated as the purity of his Buddha field reflects the purity of living beings. The purity of living beings reflects the purity of his understanding of the truth. The purity of his understanding of truth reflects the purity of his doctrine, or you call it sutra. The purity of his doctrine reflects the purity of his transcendental practice, we call it cultivation. And the purity of his transcendental practice reflects the purity of his own mind. So from Buddha field, living beings, understanding the truth, his doctrine, transcendental practice, true mind. These are two ways. Okay. Two-way streets. This quote, 随其心境则佛土境. The translation is, the purity of his Buddha field reflects the purity of his heart. So we know the Buddha field is the land or the field of the Buddhas. Example of a conversation between the Shakyamuni and Sariputra in the sutra, the Vermanakari Sutra. So while the Buddha was resident in the garden of Amrapali in the city of Vasali, attended by a great gathering with all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, noble disciples, and bhikshus, Arhat, speaking about the purification of the Buddha field in chapter 1, Sariputra was having this thought. If the Buddha field is pure only to the extent that the mind of the Bodhisattva is pure, then when Shakyamuni Buddha was engaged in the, he called it career of a Bodhisattva, his mind must have been impure. Otherwise, how could this Buddha field, we call it mundane world, appear to be impure? Why is it called impure? Because it's filthy, it's dusty, it's hot and dangerous. The Buddha was aware of his thoughts. So here's the thing, when Buddha is giving his speech to his disciples, he would want to make sure everybody can pay a full attention to what he's speaking. So anybody who's like, start thinking
Wondering
about
mind.
something else, right? If they start have wandering mind or wandering thoughts, he will know. Okay, so he knows. You don't have to say, nobody needs to say anything. He will know. Okay, so in this case, he noticed that he has this thought, and he said to him, "What do you think, Shariputra? Is this because the sun and moon are impure that those blind from birth do not see them?" Shariputra replies, "No, Lord, it is not so. The fault lies with those blind from birth and not with the sun and moon." The Buddha declared, "In the same way, Shariputra, the fact that some living beings do not behold splendid display of virtues of the Buddha field of the Tathagata is due to their own ignorance." It is not fault of the Tathagata. Tathagata. It's Tathagata.
Suchness.
Right. So the Buddha field of Tathagata means Tathagata means that one who has thoughts come, 如来, right? Is pure, but you do not see it. Okay? So he explained here in the conversation. Number 11, I think this is a topic on its own. I was spending so much time on this, so I don't want to. I didn't finish, but it's okay. We can come back to that. That's a topic on at its own. So okay, so here. Okay. The second paragraph, it says, in this era, described as the final judgment, the last catastrophe, the degeneration of extension of the Dharma by many religions, we claim that the advance of science and human power conquers the nature. However, after a series of natural disaster in recent years, we should realize where and how the advanced science also has some negative impact. Lecturer Liu mentioned that once the Suragama Sutra disappears, I don't know if you guys heard this. Yeah, Suragama Nenyan Jing. The rest of the sutra will slowly disappear. So when that happens, it's a sign. It is a sacred and hidden sutra in the Buddhist temple. In the Suragama Sutra, Manjushri spoke a great deal about how the world is formed and how Mara, I guess Mara is the evil, a demon, does not want us to know. Also, he pointed out the calamities are due to the accumulated karmas from the human beings. He also said that how the weather changes has to do with our thoughts and emotions. Our thoughts change too quickly, rapidly, unstable and unpredictable. Part of the cultivation is to train us to become more calm and still. Once we are calm, we will be able to think thoroughly, and any decision made will come from our straight heart, which would not create any karma. This is because our true nature is capable to avoid the two extremes. Like last class, we talked, Transmitter Jing talked about the two extremes, such as like, dislike, good, evil, happy, sad. If we are stuck in either end, it is not Tao. Tao is non-dualistic. In the third paragraph, says, in such an environment, Sizun and Simu received the heavenly decree and brought salvation to the three realms. Who knows what the three realms? Yes, Johnny?
Heaven, earth, and the underworld.
Okay. Where, heaven, mankind, and underworld. They also deliver the wonderful Dharma by guiding people's heart to the realization of our true nature and achieve their goals to the Buddhahood. Even though the cultivation was difficult and the concepts of Tao takes time to understand fully, people still propagate Tao earnestly and undertook all hardships without complaints and conducted the impossible missions. They led sentient beings to reveal their true nature and to guide them to the purity of their own Buddha field of the Bodhisattvas, and to fulfill Maitreya's vows to transform the secular world into Lotus land. However, while Tao was still being propagated worldwide, Sizun and Simu returned to the heaven, and our grand predecessor was ordained by Lamu to continue Sizun's unfinished great merciful vows. And here on the fourth paragraph begins, Grand Predecessor started his career with Da De Long Dyeing. It's a factory and textile mill. The business became more and more prosperous under his diligent management. However, for his constant overwork, he was ill with incurable tuberculosis, right? Tuberculosis. TB. At age of 37. That's quite young, right? Then he received Tao and was greatly blessed with the mercy of Jigong Buddha, who snatched his life from the jaws of death. From then on, he was determined to propagate Tao wholeheartedly. He made vows to preach the gospel of the Lao Mu, our Lao Mu, and to bring salvation to the world. He said, "If I am able to recover from the disease, I will surrender my business and family and to devote myself to propagate Tao." So in a way, this is from last class, one of the answer?
Explanation from the answer.
Yeah, it's explanation, like when you ask favor from the God. I don't know if he asked, but maybe he did. So in return, in a way, this is what he needs to do to delay his disease. Okay. Grand Predecessor claimed that he wanted to learn from Confucius for his entire life. He always talked about what saints and Buddhas said and what Sizun and Simu passed on. It was similar to Confucius' idea of passing on the ancient culture and not creating. It means that since the ancient way is the way, why make up some other way? It's like what Mencius said. When speaking, always make a laudatory reference to Yao and Sun. There's a history about this. Our grand predecessor is modest and would not take on any credits when things are done the right way. So the next quote where it said 古人言先重泥而胜者非重泥而无以名. So I found out that quote came from an emperor Yuan Wu Zong. Yeah, so it's from 1218 to 1311. He's the third emperor in Yuan dynasty. He was a Mongolian. He said, those saints who lived before Confucius could not be understood without him. This means people would never know about the saints if Confucius never mentioned their names. Okay. So here are the few quotes I thought it's important kind of to like go over them. So here, that's our Confucius. The idea that he wants us to, he points his ideas. Okay, Confucius' idea of passing on the ancient culture and not creating. So I didn't understand what it means. So I had to like look further. So like I said before, it means that, you know, since the ancient way is the way, why make up some other ways? In a way, I believe this also means our Buddha nature is the way. As you shouldn't be making up some other way, but follow your Buddha nature. I think that's what that means. Okay, so Lao Qianren, that's our grand predecessor. That's him. This is him. So he said, 言师必称. Grand predecessor claimed, okay, so again here, he claimed that he wanted to learn from the Confucius for his entire life. He always talked about the saints and Buddhas and one Sizun and Simu passed on. So because of them, that's how come we learn about Sidun and Simu, right? So we always have to mention someone before us, so we know their greatness, what they did for us. We're here because of them, basically. All right. So, and mentions is this picture over there. So when speaking, always make to give praise in reference to Yao and Sun. I guess the history of Yao and Sun, they are ordinary people. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, they're ordinary people, but then and yet they are being honored to be the king for the country at the time, right? Okay, so all right, and then this is that's a Yuanwu Zong, right? So again, he also mentioned those saints who lived before Confucius could not be understood without him. All right. Continue. The grand predecessor always announced Sidun and Simu's virtue and expressed his appreciation through words. He also built memorial halls and towers and purchased land for temples to fulfill Sidun's wish. However, he had a greater aspiration, which he wanted to come back to be human again for more Tao propagation. We should feel fortunate and thankful that although we are not born in the period of Yao and Sun and are not there when Confucius was traveling around the world and are not taught by Sidun and Simu, we can still learn about the teachings from our ancient saints from the grand predecessor. There was another reason that he wanted not leave the world, because he said that we're not there with him. We are his family, so he wants to come back. At age 93, he traveled to Indonesia's temple opening. He knew his body couldn't last much longer. After the ceremony was over, he collapsed behind a closed door. He said, "Let's go back to Taiwan. I can't show my weak body to these new Tao group. I can't let them down." He secretly prays to God to pity him to go back to Taiwan, Fusan safely. He knew it was time to go back to heaven, but wished to stay a bit longer because he still wanted to watch over the Tao affairs. One day, together with the Fusan members, he finally lined up the bundle of incense and begged Lamo to extend another year of his life so that he can complete his unfinished Tao affairs. He was always concerned about the future of Fusan, whether people would lose their direction and waste all their time. At age 94, many places from different countries wanted his visit and blessings, but he said, "Even I wanted to go, but my body just would not cooperate." At age 95, he left this secular world. However, he channeled in Taiwan during 2005 and given a holy name, Baishui Shendi, Whitewater Emperor. A Tao senior said to grand predecessor had once stated that Sizun said, "As long as you are able to stand, go propagate Tao. If you don't propagate Tao, be sure to cultivate Tao." We get that? Right? Okay. Grand predecessor vigorously and fearlessly Tao attitude is exactly the mirror image of Sizun's. I always have to remember that. Okay. During the awake ceremony of the grand predecessor, Da Gu and other Tao members were talking among themselves about how so many visitors from around the world came. It showed that he had devoted so much in Tao propagation and Tao affairs. All of them felt that they all need to learn from the grand predecessor to devote himself or himself or herself even more. Anyone who had in contact with the grand predecessor knows that he was always treated everyone equally. He moved people by his words and actions. Another Tao member said that very often that grand predecessor's action touched the Tao members. One time, grand predecessor gave a cane to a stranger at the airport because the old man was having difficulty walking. He just received this gift from some other Tao member, and yet he gave it to somebody else that he saw at the airport because he felt that this man needed more than he does. He thought about others before himself. The year when Confucius Temple was completed, the grand predecessor went to Thailand and visited an oldest and most virtuous Buddhist monk. He gave him some books, and in return, the monk gave him a brass Shakyamuni statue. While rest at the temple, he gave the statue to the temple host. It was such a surprise, joyful, and wordless experience for them. So again, he doesn't want to keep anything. He just gives them away. Hold on. I think I'm still on here. Okay, after the grand predecessor passed away, hundreds of thousands of people were heartbroken. No one wanted him to leave this world. He completed his holy mission. However, he had once said to everyone that he would be back again. These words are still imprinted in the people's heart. He was an incarnation of a Buddha, a saint. A bright star shines in the sky. The grand predecessor advised us that our Qigong living Buddha was once a human. Don't underestimate us. Everyone can be Yao and Sun. He was honest with us about no one is perfect. He said, "What kind of man was Sun?" A layman. "What kind of man am I?" He who exerts himself will also become such as he was. As if we do what Buddhas do, then we can become like a Buddha. He also often said, "He who cultivates will achieve the goals. He who propagates Tao will attain ultimate realization. He is a layman like everyone else. However, everyone knows he is like a living Buddha. Nevertheless, the light of candle can go off one day, the flower will well someday, our physical body cannot last forever." Sizun said, oh, no, it's not Sizun. This is Zhuangzi. Zhuangzi said, "A piece of firewood burns out instantly, but if we pass on the fire to another, it will never be extinguished." It is speechless when it comes to describe completely about the entire life of our grand predecessor. So that's the end of the given text about his virtues. I found this book, I think it was maybe 2 years ago when I was in Taiwan, and I read the entire book, and I pick out certain certain parts of the book that I thought it's interesting to share with everyone. And first, let's look at the living attitudes from our grand predecessor. So here, he always cared about, he always wanted to read all these scriptures from all the Tao centers. He cares about how other divisions are doing. And he always wanted to make sure all the scriptures that at least from his temples, he want to make sure that they're nicely organized and bounded. The second thing about him that I read from this book, he kept the old-fashioned cooking stone in the kitchen. His attitude about gas stoves are like slow poisoning from the gas. That's his. Chopping wood to make fire can be part of the training. Also, he supports simple cooking, 3 dishes and 1 soup. If there are visitors, will be 4 dishes. Okay. And he always have his breakfast at 7, lunch at 12, dinner at 6. This part reminds me in the chapter 1, the Diamond Sutra. You know, what does the Buddha do? Right, each day?
Normals.
Right,
Yeah,
sipping, right?
routine.
Yeah, the routine,
Sipping.
right. So he always, he will always have the same, you know, when it's time for lunch, he will pick out his bowl and start begging for food. Is another word for begging. Yeah. Okay, so this is like that. And he eats quickly and fast. In the book it says 5 minutes. He eats in 5 minutes. Can you imagine? He doesn't. Well, there's a reason. Here says he doesn't want people to feel uncomfortable. One time, a yam soup that didn't turn out right, but he drank it anyway. Yam is like a potato, right? But he called it the pot washed water. I guess that really
So
tastes
it's not
bad.
very tasty, right?
No, right.
Very bland.
Yeah. But he drank it anyway. Okay, so his cooking had unique taste each time. Okay, so yeah, so he goes to the kitchen, but when he goes, he doesn't need anybody's help. He will just do everything on his own. And this is a funny part. He will use every leftover in the refrigerator and make everything in one pot. That's why each time it tastes different. Okay.
Very simple life.
Actually, that's
Yeah.
what they do in the old time.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
only
in the
have
old
one
days. Yeah,
wall.
yeah, because they don't have refrigerator. They can't waste. You don't waste
Yeah,
leftovers.
he also, you know, won't like people to
Leftovers,
to
yeah.
keep a lot of food in the refrigerator because they go bad or they become poison if you put it there too long.
Frugal, simple life.
Okay, so this author, the person who wrote this book, I forgot to mention, she was one of the talents that lived in Fusan with him for a long time. So she one day sat down and started eating on her own, and he said to her, "There are still people in the kitchen cleaning up. You're not helping, and you're eating by yourself already." Other time, after he finished his meal, and he will watch others eat. Everyone became nervous, and some of their hands become crippled
It's embarrassing.
when holding the chopstick,
Yeah.
you know, like that. Someone,
That's embarrassing.
so one time, someone tried to pick up a very sticky and long stir-fried clear rice noodles at the dinner table. And because it was really long and sticky, she had to stand up and try to, pick up the portion that she wanted. He saw, and he said to everyone at the table, "You guys are not helping her, not benevolence. How do you cultivate, or how do you even talk about cultivation? Not able to observe these small gestures and can't even help each other. Forget about in serious situations. Everyone felt so embarrassed afterwards. So, when similar situation happened, 7 or 8 pairs of chopsticks tried to help that person. Then everyone started laughing with each other. So they won't let the same situation happen again. They will immediately, oh, they see it quickly, help them or help her. He will teach at any given chance and time to Tao Kings. Every young child stay with him must learn how to pick up small peas using their chopsticks. Do you guys know how to do that? Picking up small peas. He wanted to make sure they know how to hold their bowls and chopsticks properly. He does not propose getting food to others. What happens if you pick up something that someone prefers not to eat? Morning chores is to clean inside of the house. Afternoon is to work outside in the field. He asked, want to have no thoughts? He said, quiet time doesn't mean that your mind is still. Stillness appears when you are in motion. Oh, well, this is, as you all know, in the Pure and Stillness Sutra, it has a part where it says 亲者左之源，动者静之静，静之机. Right. So it means that the purity is turbidity source. There must be a better translation. But anyway, this is what it says. Tranquility is movement's root. So the last part, the way I would translate is the foundation of the stillness or tranquility is the movement. So part of the exercise in Fusan is to make a walkway using rocks. Fusan is a rocky mountain. One day, the author asked Lao Qianren, right, the grand predecessor, if she can have, it's her turn to do the chores, right, in the field. So she asked Lao Qianren if she can wait for like a male Tao King to carry the rocks. So Lao Qianren said, is male Tao King a human? Aren't you human too? Since we're all human, he is able to move the rocks. Why can't you? Go on. To gain strength, must train to use the strength. After all kinds of physical labors, she rarely has any dreams at night. She noticed that a night lasted 1 second long. In other words, it was time for her to get up when she felt she was only just went to bed. Sometimes she couldn't even make it back to her own bed, and could just fall asleep anywhere. Later, she tried to go to the bathroom. She didn't know why she couldn't pee. Even she went past by all the bathroom doors. So she went back to sleep. When she went back to her room, she saw her body laying on the bed. Then she realized that it was her spirit who went to the bathroom. It was too exhausted to worry about anything, and that was the experience of a stillness. Okay, so these are the few examples of his living attitude. His teaching. Okay, so Lao Qianren put all efforts on learning sutras and scriptures. When he has time, he will write calligraphies or read. One time, he wanted to find someone to teach the Book of Change, I Ching. Okay. At the time, one lecturer came to teach, but Lao Qianren really wanted him to talk about the true meaning, not the feng shui stuff. Okay, feng shui stuff. Later, someone asked him why he didn't want to teach it himself. He said that he does not understand it. Then the author asked, why not? You lecture to us all the time. He showed his hand to the number 6 and said, okay, I guess he did this, okay, like this. said to her, I read 6 different kinds of it. Still don't understand. This and this 6, okay? So he still don't understand it. Then he said, it's not easy. They are not sure if he was being modest or it was really because each publication of the Book of Change was so different and not explaining its true meaning. Well, I remember hearing from Lecturer Liu, who said that almost all the publications talk about the changes, and they don't talk about the one that does not change. That's the one that Lao Qian and our grand predecessor want them to talk about from the Book of Change. No one knows the order of learning. No one knows the order of learning is to learn the one that is unchanged first. Also, when people who have the knowledge from the Book of Change usually became very proud and refused to learn about it. Nevertheless, the point is that our grand predecessor has such great learning spirit. Excuse me. His attitude of learning is always getting to the bottom of it. Never take anything lightly. His teaching also includes looking for bitterness or hardships. Do we do that? Okay, don't just look for good, nice, and easygoing stuff and playing around all the time. The author thought, how do you look for hardships? We would just live day by day. She later realized what he meant. He meant looking for responsibilities. Because the more you do, the more mistakes you make. The less you do, the less mistakes you make. Doing nothing makes no mistakes. If you are able to be responsible, you will have many challenges to face. And because of the challenges, they make you grow stronger and be able to benefit to the sentient beings. If you don't take on any responsibilities and afraid of facing difficulties, it means that you wasted your life on earth. He said that even though it is the time of Confucius, we still need to learn all other sutra, especially the 大藏经, or it's called Tripitaka. The Tripitaka. Korean.
Yeah, that's the Korean. Yeah, there's a copy in one of those Korean monasteries. That's a whole set. It's huge. It's basically the whole set of Buddha's teachings according to the Hinayana tradition or the Theravada tradition. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Did you read it?
No, of course not. Even Lecture Liu couldn't read it.
Or Buddhist scriptures and. So he said there are more than 100 volumes. Yeah. There is also the Diamond Sutra, the Heart Sutra. He said, you see, there are too many volumes of Da Zhang Jing. One can never finish their study in one lifetime. Oh my God.
Time to go.
That's it?
No more time.
Okay, I'm sorry I couldn't finish this.
How much more do you have?
I
How many more
have
slides?
maybe like 3-4 pages. I can read faster though.
Why don't you do it next week?
No, is it your turn? Is that why I said that? Okay, so yeah, there are just a few other stories that from the book that I thought it's interesting. But I guess I can just jump to the conclusion.
No.
Huh? No. Let me jump to the conclusion. because these are like, different stories that when he tried to teach the Tao King. Like this one is just very quickly. A lot of time, we have people like to complain about other things, right? So when they went to him, he will say, he will do this to the Tao King. Say it again. Repeat again. Louder, please. Louder. So they will do that as he says, right? So until that they get tired, they finally got it. Oh, okay, I shouldn't be complaining, and they left. Okay, that's that. This one, he is so unique and special in a way. The book said every time when he has the Tao ceremony, there's always at least 500 people receive Tao.
Wow.
That's what it is on each trip, and that's the audio. And this is just some video I found. It's a celebration of the 30th ceremony for the temple, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So in conclusion, right, Lao Chen had propagated Tao diligently for more than 50 years. He fulfilled his lifelong commitment and arose the universal truth and the value of the life. He devoted himself to glorify an essence of Confucianism, having constantly admonished the restoration of ethics, helped eradicate evils and maintain social stability. He also received honors, from the governor. Throughout his life, he endured suffering and hardships without complaints. He enlightened people without weariness, and he's adhered to his great vows without cease. His influence is widespread and far-reach. Lao Qianren, at the age of 95, answered the merciful call from Lao Mu and returned to heaven. His departure left countless Tao cultivators crying and reminiscence of deep reverence and great gratitude. If I have said anything wrong, I ask for God's forgiveness. Thank you very much.